Hello, hi everyone. I am Sanjay Gupta. I welcome you on Sanjay Gupta Tech School. So, this is day 44 of Salesforce Learning Bootcamp, and today's topic is Apex Trigger. So, in last 3 weeks, we covered Apex programming. So, I hope you have done all the exercises. So, today I will be starting the new topic, and this topic we will be discussing this week and next week. Right, so Apex Trigger is very much important and it is an automation tool that is available in Salesforce. And whatever we have studied in Apex programming, everything we will be using while working with Apex Trigger. Okay, so once again, welcome everybody, those who are joining live and those who are who will be watching the recording. So I hope you will also learn a lot through this stream. And moving forward, if you joined this bootcamp today only and you want to know who am I, so this slide represents what I have done so far and what I am doing. So I am basically having 16 plus years of experience. I have both education and IT experience. So in IT, I just learned Salesforce, and due to education experience, I am just training students, freshers, and professionals so that they can learn Salesforce. So this is me, and I started this bootcamp in January until now. 43 sessions are done, and this is number 44. And I think total 100 sessions will be there. So I'm trying to explain each and everything in detail, and I expect you are following all these learning best practices. So today we are starting new topic, so I'm just going to explain these in detail. So you need to proper focus. You need to do proper focus on live sessions because all the topics are connected. So in Trigger, we have different scenarios that we need to understand, right? So if you follow all the sessions, then only you will be able to understand it properly, right? So I will give you self practice exercises as well. I will give some demonstration in the session. So you just need to take proper notes for future reference. You can write down doubts and you can ask them in Q&A part of the session. So those who are following these live sessions regularly, they know first I complete explanation and demo, and then I try to answer each and every question in each session at the end. So this makes this bootcamp and channel unique. So I bet you won't see any channel who is doing live sessions regularly every week and answering each and every question in the live session itself. So there are many organizations, they are just selling paid courses and then they do one live session once in a week or so. So I don't think that make any sense because learning needs consistency, right? So I'm just trying to build a platform where you can just learn things consistently and your all questions should be answered. So don't miss any session and practice each session. If you face any doubt during practice session, so I have created a Telegram self-help group, and that group is very active. People are helping each other in that group, and if you have not joined this group yet, so I just shared the link of that Telegram group in the chat. So please do join because this week and next week you will utilize that group a lot because there will be lots of doubts, and through that Telegram group you can share your questions, and who have solved the problem they will be answering, right? So after joining you will realize 24 hours that group is active, right? Someone is asking questions, someone is answering. So this way people are learning and sharing their knowledge, and keep doing above every day so that you can build strong foundation. So consistency is the key. So if you are learning, then you should be consistent. If you are sharing your knowledge, like I am sharing my knowledge, so I am consistent. So everywhere in our life, consistency matters, right? So the way we live our life like for survival on daily basis, we need to eat food, right? For survival, we need to breathe on daily basis. So these two processes are consistent, right? Right. So learning and sharing should also be consistent. So don't think whether you will be getting any job or not, or if you are already in job, so what will be your future. So don't think much about that. Just focus on learning first. Once you have proper learning, then you can just think about that. Because if you do worry and learning simultaneously, then you won't be learning much, right? So I would suggest consistency is the key. So do watch all the sessions, do all the practice. Everything is available free of cost. You just need to pay your time, right? And I think everybody can spare 2 to 3 hours on daily basis, right? So I am also sparing 3 hours on daily basis for you, so that I can prepare the content and deliver it, right? So if I am doing this for you, so you can also do it for yourself. Okay, so first I will be explaining about trigger. We'll give one demo, and then I will take all your questions and will try to answer. Okay, so these are two places where you can ask questions. I think Telegram group is used frequently, so you can go with that. But if you want to ask questions, you can like send your questions in the comment sections as well. So this is our bootcamp timeline. So as I promised, like I am consistent. So this is week 12, right? So you can see how consistent I am, and I am sure lots of folks are consistent in learning as well, right? So I'm happy for you, and I congratulate you. Like you have, like you are about to complete 12 weeks this week, right? It's almost 3 months, right? So by the end of this week, this bootcamp will be completing 3 months, and I am sure like there is no other bootcamp running in entire Salesforce ecosystem for so long, and totally free of cost with everything explained in detail, right? So just follow this. Like Sanjay Gupta Tech School everywhere on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Telegram. Receive all the notifications. All the important links are available in the video description. Follow, and please share the channel with others as well, so that they can also start their journey, so that they can have some job. And like soon you will see cybersecurity session will happen. So in session tracker, I already mentioned the date. If I take you to the session tracker, so here you will see cybersecurity bootcamp I will be launching on 20th April, and from tomorrow I will start sharing like details about that bootcamp. So we have decided like to do this bootcamp in different phases, because we need to know the feedback from people, like how they are feeling with that bootcamp, right? So all the details I will be sharing in the next week, so that you know what cybersecurity is. And if you are not having any job, you are fresher and you are struggling, so you can just start working as a freelancer, right? Because that is also important. If job is there, then that is okay. If job is not there, you can just try and do some freelancing work. Okay, so I hope this will help you. Okay, yeah, I know video got stuck, so I just like changed the setting. Actually, it is due to some internet issue. Okay, so this was brief about what I did, what I'm doing, and what I will be doing. So this is the first session of Trigger, so I took long to explain all that stuff. Now I'm just moving on to the topic, right? Because if you are joining particular session, so understanding topic is very much important. So today's topic is Apex Trigger in Salesforce. So now I'm going to explain this for you. Okay, so First of all, we need to understand the introduction of trigger, like what is trigger and why we use trigger. So here lots of points are listed, and these points you can explain in an interview as well. Like if in an interview, interviewer asks you like what is trigger, what is apex trigger, why we need apex trigger. So you can say like triggers are initiated when a record is inserted, updated, deleted, and undeleted, right? So if you do any of these four operations on particular record, so your trigger is basically initiated, right? So this is the first point that you need to remember. Next point is use trigger to do operations that cannot be done by point and click tools provided by Salesforce. So we have workflow rule, process builder, flows, but workflow rule and process builders are deprecated now. So we have flow, and in flow we have different types of flows. So if you are unable to implement any complex solution with flows, so you can just go and implement that solution with the help of trigger, right? Because in trigger, everything you need to do with the help of custom code, right? So complex scenarios we can implement with trigger, and we can do things using trigger that we can do through Apex. So whatever you can write in Apex, everything you can use in trigger as well. So that's why it is basically known as Apex trigger. So trigger means whenever you are creating, updating, deleting or undeleting any record, so some process should trigger. Trigger means initiate, right? So whatever code you will be writing in the trigger, that will be Apex code only, right? Including SOQL and DML or calling some methods. So SOQL, DML, method, classes, those everything we have already done. So the base is already built. We just need to use that base so that we can understand how basically trigger works. So triggers can be created for both standard as well as custom objects. So we'll be doing it for both. So in demonstration, I will be using standard object, but in our exercise sheet, I will put some scenarios around custom object as well. Okay, so that you can just prepare yourself well, and we can perform custom operations before or after event. So this is very important. Second last point is very much important. Here we have two words, before events and after events. So in trigger, we have two types of events that we need to understand. So I will be explaining what before event is and what after event is. And by default, triggers are active as you create them. Okay, so these are some point that you can explain while answering what is trigger in interview. Okay, now moving forward, so we have two types of triggers. One is before and one is after. Okay, so if I go back, so I already told you we have two types of events, before and after. So you can say before trigger, it is used to update or validate record values before saved to database. So for example, if you are creating any record and before saving that record into database, if you want to do some changes in that record with the help of code, so that process you will be executing with the help of before trigger. Okay, and second we have after trigger. So once your record is saved to the database, and if we are talking about insert operation, so once your record is saved to the database, so for that record ID will be generated. So for example, if you have created any record, and you want to use that record ID for any processing purpose, so in that case you should be using after trigger, because newly created records ID will be available in after trigger only, right? And if you want to do something on the related record, so I hope this you remember we saw in flow as well. In flow we have fast field update and actions and related record, right? So fast field update is equals to before trigger, and actions and related record is basically similar to after trigger. Okay, so for example, if you are creating account record and you want to do something with related contact or opportunity, so in that case also you will be using after trigger. Okay, and the record that fire the after trigger are read only. So trigger in the after trigger, the record who like which initiated that trigger, that record will be read only. So in that record you won't be able to do any modification. If you want to do modification, you want to apply particular DML operation, right? So this is brief difference, and I hope right now if you are a beginner, and never wrote any trigger, so it might be confusing. But when we'll be implementing some examples, so it will be very much clear for you, like when to write before triggers and when to write after trigger. Okay, so if you see this, so every day, like tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we will be doing a comparison based scenario implementation. So I will be implementing before insert versus after insert, before update versus after update, before delete versus after and delete. So this way, we will be implementing scenarios in such a way so that you can understand when to use before insert and when to use after insert. Okay, now this is very much important to understand. Okay, so just go through whatever is written here in the table so that you can understand the difference between like what it means like record is saved to the database and what it means like record is committed. So here 5 sections are available. First section says if you are doing insert, update, upsert or delete operation on a record. So just after that, all before trigger executes, then record is saved to the database but not committed yet. It means record is saved to the database but not committed. It means it is temporarily saved. If there is any error in the process, so whole process will be rolled back, right? So that's why this third block is important. So record is saved to database but not committed yet. Then after saving into the database, all after trigger executes, and then your commit operation will be done with the help of DML operations, right? So these are like brief steps. So I just identified 5 steps, but we have whole order of execution. So you can see here I have a link, so I'm just opening it so that you can see it in detail. So if I show you this trigger and order of execution, so here you can see it is mentioning when you save a record with an insert, update or upsert statement, Salesforce performs a sequence of events in a certain order, right? So here all the orders are mentioned. So first of all, loads the original record from the database or initiates the record for an upsert statement, then loads the new record field value from the request and overwrites the old value. So this way all the steps. Now here step number 3 says execute record trigger flows. 4 says execute all before trigger. So this way duplicate rules. Then here number 7 says save the record to the database but doesn't commit yet, right? So record is saved but it is not committed. Then execute all after trigger. Then assignment rule, auto response rule, workflow rules, everything is listed, escalation rule. Then record triggered flows, those are configured for run after the record is saved. Then entitlement rules. Then here you can see execute criteria based sharing, and then step number 19 says commits all DML operations to the database. Okay, so now I hope you understand the difference between save to the database and commit to the database. Okay. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So I'm just sharing this link so that you can also go through with this. So just open this link which is available in the chat, and you can go through with this trigger and order of execution so that you understand everything. So moving forward, So if I go back, so just see this again. So before save, we execute before trigger, after save, we execute after trigger, and then commit operation is done. So everybody needs to remember all these steps while working with trigger. Now if I go forward, so here you can see trigger syntax is available. So first of all, you need to write a trigger keyword, then name of the trigger, then on object name, and then trigger events. Okay, so this is the syntax, and I will be explaining one example today so that you understand how we can write it through developer console. Okay, so moving forward, so here we have trigger events. So we have total 7 events: before insert, before update, before delete. So in before case we have 3, and in after we have 4: after insert, after update, after delete, and after undelete. Right? So these are total 7 events available that we will be using while implementing the trigger. Okay, and with name like insert, update, delete, it is clear like when this event will be working. And before and after, you can just understand with this. So before means if you want to do something before record is saving to the database, and once record is saved to the database, then after that if you want to do something, then we go for after. Right? And then once all the operations are done, then your record is committed to the database. And once record is committed to the database, it means it is permanently saved. Okay. So these are total 7 events that we'll be discussing. So today I will be explaining before insert, but not much in detail, because tomorrow we will be discussing before insert and before insert and after insert in detail. Right? So moving forward, so this is our example number 1, which will tell you how you can write a trigger. And while implementing trigger, I will tell you some best practices as well, like how you can implement your trigger, what best practices you need to follow while implementing the trigger, right? So like while implementing, I will be explaining them, but separately I will be having one more session where I will be explaining you the best practices of Apex as well as trigger. So both topics are related. That's why I will be keeping those things in one session only. So here you can see this example says trigger is the keyword, the name of the trigger is account trigger. So this is part of best practice. Don't write any name for the trigger. It should be object, and then it should be appended with the word trigger. So if you are writing trigger on account object, so it should be account trigger. If you are writing trigger on contact object, it should be contact trigger. If you are writing trigger on case object, it should be case trigger. If you're writing trigger on position object, that is our custom object we implemented in the project. So your trigger name should be position trigger, right? So first you need to write the object name, and then it should be appended by the trigger word, right? Then here we just have this system.debug so that we can see whether trigger is working or not. And I already told you when trigger will be initiating, whenever you will be creating, updating, deleting, or undeleting any record. So right now I'm using just one event, that is before insert. So whenever I will be creating any record, so this trigger will be executing. Okay, so I'm going to implement this example in the org. So here you can see developer org. Developer console is already available. If I click on file and new, so here this Apex trigger option is available, right? So you just need to click on Apex trigger, then this window will appear, and here you just need to write the name of your trigger. So I'm writing account trigger because I'm going to create a trigger on account. And if you click on this drop down, so all your standard and custom object will be listed here. So you can just scroll and search particular object, you can select it, and you can just click on submit. So this way your trigger is created. And here you can see the extension, it is APXT. If you create any class, so it is APXC. But if you are creating a trigger, so it is APXT, right? So this way I have created a trigger. So trigger is the keyword, this trigger is the keyword. Then this account trigger is the name of the trigger. Then on account, this account is the object, right? So this object name will come automatically because at the time of trigger creation, we selected it. Okay. And this is the default event. Before insert event will come automatically, right? So right now I'm not focusing much on these events because this we will be comparing tomorrow. So as of now, you will be using before insert because at least one event is required. And if event is not available, then your trigger won't work. So this trigger will work on insert operation. Before says like if you are creating a new record. So before the record is getting saved to the database. So prior to that, if you want to do some task, then you can do it in before insert. Right. So here I'm just writing system.debug demo trigger with before insert event. So this way I'm just writing this system.debug statement in the trigger and I'm saving it. Right. So in last 3 weeks, when we were discussing about Apex programming, so you saw every time I was implementing a method inside the class and I was opening this anonymous window and I was calling methods like this. I was doing this whole 3 weeks and you was saying like every time we need to call the methods like this. So I was saying no, these methods we are calling here for testing purpose. When we'll be working with trigger, so these methods will be executing automatically. So now if you want to run your trigger code, whatever code we have written here, if you want to run this code, you don't need to open your anonymous window. You don't need to open your anonymous window to call particular method. What you need to do, you need to create a record. So this trigger we wrote on account object, right? This trigger we wrote on account object. So I'm moving here and going to create an account record. Right, so I am creating account record, active is required, so I'm populating it and clicking on save. So this way account record is created. Now if I go here and click on logs, so here a few log documents or log files are available. So I need to open them one by one. So here we don't see any debug. If I open the second one, so here also I don't see any debug statement. If I open the third one, so here lots of statements are available. And if I click on debug only, so here you will see this. Line number 2 is showing demo trigger with before insert event. So it means the code which I implemented here is working on creation of account record automatically. So this is basically trigger. So whatever code is written inside the trigger, that will execute whenever your record is created or updated or deleted or undeleted as per the events that you have implemented. Right? So this is one demo that I gave you. So I just created the record from UI. Now, if you want to test this trigger execution by creating a record through code, that is also possible. So what you can do here, you can just try to create new account record. So this way you can just try to create a new account record. Okay, so if you insert any account record, then open log is checked already. So logs will be opened and in that log you will see the debug statement. Right, so I'm just executing this. Okay, active is true, so we just need to populate that as well. So active field we need to populate as yes because it is required field. So again I'm clicking on execute. Now it is executed, logs are opening and I'm just clicking on debug only so you can see the result. Okay, so this way, if you implement a trigger, so that implemented trigger you can test through two different ways. One, you can create your record from UI, and another, you can create your record through code. In both the cases, your trigger will work and you will see the results in the log. Why in the log? Because right now the code which we have implemented is having system.debug only, right? So this way I just gave you brief demo like how you can create trigger, and after implementation of trigger, how you can just test it. Okay, so if you are a beginner, then I hope this information is very helpful for you. Now I'm just moving forward. So after understanding how we can implement trigger and how we can write events, how we can write code, how we can test it. So in trigger, we use some context variables as well. Okay, so all triggers define implicit variables that allow developers to access runtime context. These variables are contained in the system.trigger class. So basically we have a class that is system.trigger. So we'll be using this. And here you can see we have lots of context variables. So is executing, is insert, is update. So this way, like is executing means whether your code, whether your Apex code is initiated through trigger or something else, so that we can test using is executing, right? Next is insert. So is insert will check whether your initiating, like trigger initiating operation is insert operation or not. Then same for update. Then we have delete. Then we have is before, is after, is undelete, and size. So all these are context variables that we will be using in the code, right? So if I want to give you a brief example of this, like how we can write it. So here what I can do, I can write if trigger dot is insert, then if trigger dot is before. Now inside this, I will be writing the code like this. So this way, this is insert and is before is context variable, right? And here you can see this trigger is the class, and here this is insert and is before. These are context variable which are already defined, right? So we need to know the context, like this code will be running in before insert or after insert, what. So this way, in that particular context, your code will be executing. If I go further, so here you can see we have lots of context variables. So time to time we will be using. So we'll be using after, before, delete, undelete, update, insert, is executing, all we will be using. We can also check the size of the trigger invocation, like how many records you have inserted or updated or deleted or undeleted, right? So what is the size of record, number of record, so that also we can check. Then we have few more context variables which are new map. So basically whenever you create any record, so that newly created record information will be available into this new list. This new is a list of S object type. So whenever you will be inserting, updating, and undeleting particular record, so those will go to new. And new map is basically map of this list. So this new is list and new map is map. Both will be having same data, but new is list and new map is map. Okay, so just read all the statements which are written over here, and then I will show you a table as well, so that you can just compare everything. So new and new map is for new records. But if you are updating any record, so the old values, like record will be having two different instances. So if I take an example, so for example, here I am going to update this record. I'm going to update this record. So right now this record is having account name as ACC1303. Okay. If I modify it and if I write this ACC100, so this is new value. So this is one record. This account is one record, but it is having two different values for account name field. Older value was ACC1303 and newer value is ACC1000. Okay, so record is same, but it is having two different values for one field. Or if you modify some more field, let's say rating is hot. So earlier rating was none, now it is hot. So I modified two fields. So record is one, but it is having two different values, old value and new value. Right? So I hope this way you are able to relate. Record is same, but it is having two different values. One is old value and one is new value. So what will happen? Old values will go to this old list and new value will go to this new list automatically in case of update. Right? So record is same. Record is same that you are updating, but that record will be having two different values. One is old value and one is new value. So old values, all the old values, whether you are updating record or not, old values will go to the old list and new values and those fields which you have not updated, all those will go to the new. So this way, this old list map or new list map we basically use. So you can just understand it properly with the help of this table. So just go through with this table. So here all the trigger events are listed. Total 7 events are available here. And on top you can see we have 4 context variables. So whatever operations you are performing, basis on that your result will be available. Okay, and I just removed the video. So that you can see the table completely. So once you go through, I am giving you a couple of minutes so that you can explore this table. Once you explore it completely, then I will turn on video so that you don't miss anything. So here in this table, you can see if we are performing insert operation. So in case of insert, we will be having values in trigger.new list. In new map, in before insert, we don't have anything. In after insert, we'll be having the data because map contains ID. And in case of before insert, ID won't be available. And in insert, we won't be having any old values for that particular record. So these are null. In case of update, all new and old will be having values. In case of delete, new will be having nothing. It will be null. Because we are deleting, so we always delete old records. So trigger.old and trigger.old map will be having values. New won't be. And same with undelete. Undelete will be having new values because undelete means we are restoring values from recycle bin. So those are considered as new records and it won't be having any old values. Right, so this table is very much important as per interviews. In interviews, basically interviewer asks the differences between all these 4 context variables. So with the help of this table, you will be able to explain the difference between all the context variable with regards to different events to the interviewer. Right? So I hope you are able to understand it. If you want, you can just take a screenshot of it. Otherwise, you can anytime go through the recording and you can just see the comparison. Okay, or maybe I will be sharing this image in the Telegram group so that it will be available with you always. So moving forward, now I'm going to explain the example again. So someone is asking like, can I implement this example with the help of trigger handler? So I will be doing that. Yeah, I will be doing that. And one more question is there, whenever we will be undeleting the record. So I think ID, I'm not sure, ID will be same. So we just need to figure it out. So when we'll be doing undelete, so we will confirm that, right? In my opinion, it should be same, but we'll check. Okay, so this is example 2. So first I will be writing the logic in the trigger itself, and then I will show you how we can separate it. So I will show you trigger handler as well. Okay, trigger and trigger handler. So just have some patience and be with me. So we'll be doing everything, right? And remember, today I'm not focusing much on the events. I'm just focusing on how to write the trigger and how to test it, and how to write the trigger code using trigger handler. So this example number 2, first I will be implementing it in the trigger itself, and then I will be implementing trigger handler class. Okay, so first we need to understand the requirement, like what we are doing here. So we are just assigning test description in the description field. So what will happen whenever a record is created, whenever any account record is created, so in that case, this test description will be assigned into description field automatically, right? So moving forward, moving to developer console. So here I'm just removing this statement. So now I'm going to use these context variables as well, and here I'm implementing for loop. And here I'm writing description. So this way I just implemented the trigger. Okay, so if you see here, so I just implemented this loop, and whenever you are learning trigger, so you will realize everything is Apex. Just few lines are different, rest of the code is similar to Apex. So that's why these are known as Apex trigger. And here you can see this is important, trigger.new. This is important, trigger.new. So we already discussed about this. If I go back, so here you can see we have trigger.new in case of before insert. So whenever you insert any data, so all the newly created record will go to this trigger.new. Okay, so this trigger.new is basically a list. Trigger.new is basically a list. Trigger.new is an S object list, right? And this trigger.new can contain lots of records, and one by one those records will be available in this ACC, and through this statement acc.description we are just trying to assign account is created into this field, right? So this way we are implementing this code in trigger itself. So I am just saving this code and I will be testing it through 3 different ways. So first I will be creating record through UI, then I will be creating a record through code, and then I will be creating bulk records through code. So whenever you write trigger, you can apply all 3 mechanisms. Okay, so trigger is saved. Now moving here, canceling this record. So here you can see description is blank. So the previous record which we created, it is not having anything in the description. So it means before implementing this code, description was blank. Now we have implemented this code so that description will be having this text, account is created. So coming here, creating new account record. Filling all the required fields, and here you can see description is blank. Now I'm just saving it and moving to details. If I scroll down and go to description, so here you can see account is created, is populated in the description. Right? So this way you can see how trigger is working in the background automatically whenever I created the record. So this I showed you how we can create record through UI and test our trigger. Now we will be doing same through code. So through code, first I will be creating one record. So here you can see this data is already available. So I'm just modifying it. Okay, so account name will be 12304, ACC 12304. So this account will be created, and this time we don't need to open the log, because if you see the code, so here system.debug statement is not available. This time we are going to update particular field. This time we are going to update particular field. So if I run this code, so what will happen? A record will be created and trigger will initiate automatically. So I'm just clicking on execute. Record is created. If I go here, click on accounts tab. So here it is 12304. If I open it, go to details. So here you can see account is created. So if I try to create a record through code, then also our trigger is working fine. Right? Now I'm going to show you how you can create bulk record. So I hope you remember we did it in Apex as well. So if you want to create bulk records, you just need to create a list. So here I am creating a list of account. Now I am implementing a for loop. Inside this for loop, I will be creating account records. And here I am inserting 5 records together. So here account name is ACC, then 000, and then I concatenated I here, right? Then added newly created account into this account list. So here just instance will be created. Once this loop is completely executed, then this insert ACC list will execute. It will be inserting 5 records, and all those 5 records description will be having record is created. Okay, that's why you can see here we have implemented this loop. So the 5 records that we are creating through code, all those 5 records will be available here. So that's why it is suggested whenever you are implementing any trigger, so trigger should be bulkified. So if you write trigger.new here in this loop, so this trigger is bulkified trigger. It can handle one record as well as it can handle more than one records as well. Right? So now, I mistakenly closed developer console. I'm just opening it, my bad. Okay, so here you can see this file is open. Now I'm going to open anonymous window. So I just need to write that code again. So this is the drawback of anonymous window. Whatever you write, if you mistakenly close your console, so everything will gone. So I'm just implementing it again. By mistake, I just closed developer console. So here it should be integer I equals to 1, I less than equals to 5, I plus plus, and then account ACC equals to new account, and this time I'm writing it in new line. You can write in that parenthesis as well, but due to less space I'm writing it in new line. Okay, so this way total 5 records will be created and that trigger will be executing. So I'm just clicking on execute. So code executed. Now if I come here, so you will see 5 records. Here you can see ACC 0001, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 records are created. I'm opening them one by one. So I just opened this ACC 0001. If I go to details, here you can see description is account is created, right? If I go back and open this one 0002, go to details. So what is happening here? Description is account is created. So this way, all the records that you created, if you open them, so all those records will be having description as account is created. Right? So this way, I hope you understood how we can implement a trigger having actual logic. So this is actual logic, which is actually updating particular field before record is saved to the database. Okay, and we tested it through 3 different ways. Now moving forward, I need to show how we can write trigger and trigger handler separately. Okay, so this is the code that I will be implementing, and here above part is trigger and below part is Apex class. Okay, so here I'm going to create new Apex class, and I'm naming it as account trigger handler. So this is also best practice. If you are writing any handler class or Apex class for any trigger, so its naming convention should be account trigger handler. So whatever name you have used for trigger, so it is account trigger. So you just need to use account trigger handler for your Apex class. Now here we can implement a method public static void. Then I'm naming it as update description. It will be receiving list of account ACC list, right? I'm just saving this code. So now everybody remember we are implementing static method here. So I told you in last 3 weeks, if we implement any static method, so we can call that method directly without creating any instance. We can call that method through class name. So that we will be doing in the trigger now. So in trigger, this logic won't reside. I am just cutting it and pasting it here. And in trigger, what will happen? We'll be writing account trigger handler, name of the class, and then name of the method. And here I will be passing trigger.new as a parameter. So this account trigger handler is the name of the class, update description is the name of the method, and trigger.new I am passing as a parameter, right? So this trigger.new will be receiving all the newly created record in the trigger, and through trigger we are passing all the data into this method. This method is available in this class. Right? Now if I move here, so here you can see I have already created ACC list in the first line. So trigger.new that we are passing through trigger, that data will be stored in this ACC list. Now here in place of trigger.new, I will be writing ACC list, removing this comment. So this is the trigger handler class method. So this method we are implementing, and here you can see the code is available with the help of loop. So this way you can separate out your trigger and trigger handler. Right? So this is our trigger and this is our trigger handler. And now for testing purpose you can apply the same steps. So the steps which we applied in the previous example, same steps you can apply. So we saw 3 steps like creating record through UI. We saw like creating record through code and bulk record. So on this example, you can apply same, right? Now what I can do, if I try to create new record from here, so same operation will perform. So I'm creating account record, going to details, and here you can see account is created, is populated. Right, so this way, this is appropriate program. So the last example which I demoed you, this way we implement the trigger and this way we implement the trigger handler. Now we need to understand like why we separate them out. So the reason is, if you implement all the business logic in the trigger, so trigger will be so complicated to handle. So what we do, instead of writing all the code in the trigger, we shift the business logic in the trigger handler class. And here we can have different methods, and the methods which we define here, those methods we can call here directly. Okay, so we'll be having lots of methods called in the trigger, and anytime if you want to change that calling order, or if you want to comment particular method, so that you can control with the help of trigger only. So in trigger, we don't write any business logic. In trigger, we just call the methods, and business logic or process we write in the handler class, and that handler class can have any number of methods. So I hope this answers lots of questions. Okay, so this is, you need to remember whenever you write any trigger scenario, so you will be testing it through UI, you will be testing it through code, you will be creating bulk record through code, and you can test it out. And later we'll be having one more like way to test the trigger code, that is Apex test class, right? So that we'll be implementing once trigger topic is completed. So at that time I will explain you. So this is very easy, and always remember, whenever you implement any trigger, you need to test it for one record as well as for bulk records. So yes, Firas is asking, do we need to create one handler per trigger? Yes. So the idea is, if you have one object, so for that one object there should be one trigger, and for one trigger there can be one trigger handler or more than one as well, because in trigger handler you will be defining the methods. So if they are more than one, then also it is fine. Okay, so lots of people are live learning, and that is great. So now jumping on to the Q&A. So I'm going to take questions from the beginning. So I think there are less questions today. So if you like, after this complete explanation, now if you have any question, so you can ask, because I don't see any question relevant. Everything I already explained. If you want to ask any new question, you can type it in the chat so that I can explain. And I can see people are helping each other as well, so that is good. Yes, Shrivali, so we will be using map. So don't worry. I will try my best to demo you all 3 things: list, set, and map. So guys, if you have any question, you can go ahead and you can ask. So I just explained the introduction today, and tomorrow we will be doing all the scenarios. No theory, only demo. So tomorrow we will be doing before insert and after insert. Okay, so now if you have any questions, so you can share with me. And if you don't have any question, you have understood and you want to enjoy IPL or whatever you want to do, you can. Okay, Amar is asking, if interviewer asked, explain the trigger, how we'll answer that. So I think this I already answered, Amar. So I explained you introduction to trigger. So just go to the recording. In the beginning, I explained introduction slide so that you will be explaining. Okay, Pranay is asking, can you please explain handler once? So Pranay, handler is very easy. Handler is basically an Apex class. And here I implemented this one method. Here business logic is available. This method will be receiving a list. And this list is basically trigger.new, where all the newly created records will be stored. So you need to pass it, and here we will be receiving and then processing. So loop, I think you already know. So one more thing, if you are directly understanding trigger, so you won't be. Before understanding trigger, you need to go through all previous 3 weeks sessions. Those are related to Apex, because I am always repeating, in Salesforce, everything is connected. So you should be consistent enough if you want to understand the topics. Right? So Manoj, I already explained like best approach, implement trigger and shift your business logic in the trigger handler. This recursive trigger we will be discussing. So if you guys please go through with this session tracker. So in this session tracker everything is available. So recursive trigger we'll see next week Monday, right? And the link of this session tracker is available in the description of this video. So just go through session tracker if you want to understand things. Thank you Zos Manuel for appreciating my session. Yes, Govardhan, I will be explaining about roll-up summary through trigger. So Suraj, we are not fetching records through trigger. We are just creating the record and those will go to trigger automatically. So Gopi Krishan, trigger basically we implement through code, and trigger is declarative point and click tool. And flow has some limitation, those we don't have in trigger. Raghav, I already explained trigger 2-3 times. So just go through and watch the recording now. So Nagarjuna, the trigger scenario you posted, if someone is knowing that, so they will be helping you surely. So Shilpa is asking how much time it will take to become a pro in Apex. Consider we are new to Apex. So it will take around 5 to 6 months if you do regular practice, because it is coding, and coding you can just understand through practice only. So if you do consistently practice for 6 months, include Apex trigger, test classes, you can include asynchronous Apex integration. So everything, if you practice for 6 months at least, then you will become expert. Okay, so next is so Venu, for your question, data is basically stored in the cache memory, the variables which we are creating. So you can say cache or RAM will be storing. It is not stored permanently, so it is available in the list, and once you insert, then it goes to the database. So Aparna, I already answered this question. We are creating handlers so that we can separate our business logic through trigger. So tomorrow when I will be explaining more scenarios, so our trigger will be calling more than one methods. then you will be understanding the real advantage of implementing trigger. So Shrivali, you asked very good question, and the answer to your question is all the records will be rolled back. If anyone is failing, whole process will be rolled back. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Sikandar. Thank you, Gobi Krish. Thank you, Anuj, for appreciating my efforts. So I think all the doubts are clear and everybody is good. So if you still have any question, please ask so that I can just end the session. So Shrivali, can you please, are you asking these questions in relation to the previous part? Rekha, yes, it is possible we can write trigger on two unrelated object, but there will be two triggers. One trigger will work on one object only. One trigger cannot work for two objects. Thank you, Sopan. Thank you, Nusrat. Yes, Nalla Vamshi, we can use database dot insert in triggers. So at the time of DML operation, we can use it. Thank you, Chandan. Faison recursion we will be learning later. So Shivam Pandey, trigger event executes once. So Sanjit, save data means data is stored temporarily, and if you are inserting the data, so ID will be created, and commit means like it is permanently saved in the database. So when your record is saved to the database but not committed, so after that, if something is breaking, your whole process will be rolled back. But commit means your data is permanently saved. So after that, your record won't be rolled back. This is basic difference. Thank you, Revati. Okay, Srivali, got it. So Srivali, basically, if you use database.insert like database class methods, then only you can control success and failure. Other than that, if you use DML operation, so it is like all or none. So Saida Reddy, if you want to deactivate trigger, you need to go here and you can search for Apex triggers, and from here you can deactivate. So you just need to edit it. So here you can find this checkbox is active. So if you uncheck, so your trigger will be deactivated. So from here also you can just change the code. So everybody, you can search Apex classes and Apex trigger from here in the setup, and you can control them from UI also. So Chandan, if you want to know record is committed, you can just see the logs. If everything works fine, then your record is committed. If it is breaking, then it is not committed. Okay, so I think I answered all the questions and I don't see any new questions. So thank you everybody for joining this session. And tomorrow we will be discussing lots of scenarios related to before insert and after insert. And soon you will hear about the upcoming cybersecurity bootcamp. So if you are not interested and you just want to focus on Salesforce, you can do. And if anybody in your relation, like your employee, senior, junior, anyone in your circle want to try their hands on cybersecurity, so just share information with them. Ask them to join or to subscribe Telegram group so that they can get all the information. And just for your knowledge, Salesforce and cybersecurity both will run in parallel, right? So maybe I will little bit adjust the timing. So I will let you know. But this week and next week there will be no change, uh, and both will be happening on different times. So this will be as is, no change. I will be delivering all the sessions, and cybersecurity session. Me and my friend, we both will be there, and it will be on separate time. So it is on you whether to attend or not, right? So if you want to go in that direction, you can. If not, then you can just share the information with other people, and it will be for 6 weeks so that proper knowledge will be shared. And I hope so. This will be one more step ahead from this channel for the community, so that I can break the change like education is not a business. Okay, thank you, Shrivali, for this appreciation. And yeah, I think that table basically contains everything. So that's why you got all the information together. Okay, so guys, fresher and freelancer job for cybersecurity we will be discussing, and for Salesforce you just need to play around with LinkedIn. So just explore LinkedIn and try to research some freelance website and try to search. But for fresher, freelance Salesforce work is very less. So just follow the LinkedIn. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining today's session, and tomorrow we'll be learning more stuff. Thank you. Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.